Hello, beautiful vegans. Happy Monday. It's almost Thanksgiving, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mariquita Solis, Vegan Empowerment Coaching, and I'm excited to bring you this special event because we usually don't do live streams at night, but this is so important that I wanted to set aside a time. So, everybody that's watching, thank you for watching, and let us know who's watching. Give us your comments and questions. And make sure you give StreamYard permission to use your name so we'll know who you are and where you're joining from. And tonight we are going to be talking with Meryl Fury and Carrie Bruno about their summit, the 6 Million Seeds Child Nutrition Summit. And I'm so honored that they're here with us today because this is so important. Our children are the future and they need the nourishment they need the nourishment to for their brains, for their bodies, to really help Mother Earth because we're counting on them. They're where it's at. So thank you, ladies, for coming. Thank you, Carrie and Meryl. I'm so honored to have you here. Tell us about you all and the summit, please.
All right. You go first.
Well, thank you for having both of us. So my name is Carrie. I am a pharmacist by career, and I am also a board member for Plant-Based Nutrition Movement. And that is kind of how this whole project, the 6 Million Seeds project started, and specifically the summit.
So my name is Meryl Fury. Hello. Thank you for having us, Mariquita. We're so excited to be here also. So I'm president and CEO of Plant-Based Nutrition Movement. I'm a registered nurse, and Plant-Based Nutrition Movement is a 501c3 nonprofit that is sort of loosely in the Chicago area. But because of COVID and everything having to shut down and go online, we're basically everywhere anybody has a computer these days, for which I'm grateful. The 6 Million Seeds Summit is all about child nutrition, all the facets of child nutrition. So we talk about actually the physical part of what happens when you feed your children healthy food and what happens when you don't. There's also the emotional part because there's lots of kids who experience big emotions and difficult transitions, and they get violent, they're anxious, they're depressed. And a lot of that has been linked to food and appropriate nutrition. And then there's the there's the environmental part, there's the academic part, where children have a hard time learning, they have a hard time sitting and focusing in school, and that can have to do with their nutrition. Especially, let's say, for example, they get loaded up with sugar first thing in the morning. That can have a big impact all day long. And then we also connect the child's nutrition right now to their family's nutrition, because what the child eats, generally the family is also eating. And we also connect it to planetary health, like what goes on because of our eating patterns and how that drives agricultural practices and marketing practices and what food is available on the shelf. So it's a pretty big and far-reaching project. But we are thrilled to be working on it because there's just not enough people talking about the importance of feeding children healthy food.
Wow. And yeah, there's a lot of facets of this. And just thinking about it, I haven't thought recently about the marketing to children. That's a big one there. And I don't know how I couldn't have thought of, I couldn't think about that because as a child, I loved all like Captain Crunch and.
Of course we did.
Oh, I know. And it was like, that was just the way to go. And it seems like that wasn't even, I never heard anybody talking about, or I don't feel like my parents heard anybody saying there's a different way to eat. Was that even going on then? I'm sure there was.
Not a lot back then. Now I'm going to guess Mariquita and I are about the same age, right? So we have like that cultural history in common, right? So back then, our parents had been taught that you needed to eat 3 square meals a day, right? And that was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There was meat, there was a dairy product, there was a vegetable, and there was a starch. I think those were the squares, the 4 corners of the square. Fruit was an extra. You didn't have to have fruit. But meat was like, if you wanted to go big and strong, you eat meat. You want healthy teeth and healthy bones, you got dairy. And if you wanted to sort of stay like resistant to colds, right, then you would have vegetables. And that's kind of the priorities that were set.
Yeah.
So for our parents to be told, or kids to be marketed to with Captain Crunch or Frankenberry or Count Chocula or any of those, right? Sugar Frosted Flakes, Sugar Smacks, Sugar Wheaties, sugar everything. It wasn't, there was no like internal conflict for the parent, right? Because the child was getting milk and then they were getting their starch. And that was how that looked.
Well, I mean, because when I think about it, I don't remember anything other than that. That was the way to do it, right? And you're getting the great milk. And remember all those milk mustaches, and all the athletes were saying how great milk was. And goodness sakes, I mean, times have really changed now. I mean, what was in those cereals? Like, was there any nutritional value in those cereals? Like sugar, whatever, sugar.
Not mostly sugar and I mean, there might have been some grain in there, but it's highly refined.
Well, yeah, but they were vitamin fortified. Don't forget that, so all the vitamins, all the natural minerals and fiber and everything were stripped out of the grain. And then these artificial vitamins were, used to fortify the cereal and put back in this highly not valuable, overly processed form. Yeah. And that's what kids are.
And what about
eating that? It hasn't changed.
No,
that's a robust market. And you were talking about marketing to kids. There's like $1.8 billion a year.
Yeah. People don't realize how much pull kids have, and they don't give kids credit. A lot of the family eating habits are driven by the kids. And so that's one of our main messages. If we try and improve how the kids eat, that will hopefully change how the family eats, because the kids are being marketed to every day, and they're gonna catch on and bring that to their parents and keep asking for things. And so what if we got to the point where they would start asking for fruits and vegetables? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah. Wouldn't that change the world?
Yeah.
Literally. Totally.
Yes, I know. And now I'm thankful when I go to Kroger, I see they have a little section free fruits for kids, which is shocking that's even happening. I'm like,
wow.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. But I mean, I see there's always plenty of fruit there. I don't know if the kids are grabbing it because they might be dragging their parents to the Lunchables and the Lunchables. I mean, what nutrition is in that? I can't even think. I mean, maybe there's a slice of apple. I don't know.
Yeah,
those are pretty terrible.
Yeah.
There's a book called I think it's Salt, Sugar, Fat, I think is the order that it goes in. Salt, Sugar, Fat, How the Food Giants Hooked Us, by Michael Moss. Very interesting book. He's an investigative journalist, and he went all around to these different major food companies, everything from Kraft and all of them, all of the cereal companies and the Lunchables companies, and looked at how those products came to be and what kind of science went into creating those products specifically for children, how they're marketed to children, they're targeting children to drive sales and keep those products, as they say, flying off the shelves. So, I mean, it's like I started to say before, about $1.8 billion per year is spent marketing to children, and 80% of that is for low quality, highly processed, hardly any nutrients available kind of food. And it was in 2018, I think there was a study done that was reported in the Journal of the American Medical Association, where they talked about something like 67% of the calories that children get in the United States, at least, are from these highly refined, no nutrient value products.
Yeah. And that percentage, not surprisingly, has increased from, years prior to the study. And I'm sure since that study was done, the numbers have continued to increase with more marketing to kids and, with like the delivery services that make it easier for people to obtain the unhealthier options. So
yeah. I can tell you during COVID, when everybody was locked down and you couldn't go out anyway,
yeah.
I have family members, young ones, these are kids I'm talking about, right? Who were ordering stuff from McDonald's to be delivered to their houses. Candies, bags of candies from Walgreens, all kind of stuff. They had their money, right? They had their allowance. They weren't able to go anywhere and spend it. So they had the stuff delivered to their houses, you know?
Yeah.
So it hasn't gotten any better in the last couple of years, that's for sure.
That's scary. And I know there's someone, well, a friend that had a baby recently, and I saw that they were giving the baby sugar water because they said, "Oh, this stops all the crying." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, no!" You know, that is so sad.
Yeah, no, we don't recommend that. Not even in, okay, so Carrie's a pharmacist and I'm a nurse.
Okay.
Never, not even as standard American practice, you know, healthcare. No, we don't recommend that. That's never recommended. Yeah, give the baby either formula. Well, breast milk is the first choice for sure. Get the mom's diet healthy. Breast milk is great. And if that's not available, then formula, but sugar water is never recommended.
And how much is what if the mom has a terrible diet? How does that affect the baby?
Well, one thing to consider is, regardless of what if you're using formula or breastfeeding, whatever the mom is eating, the baby is getting. So I guess make your diet as good as it can be if you're breastfeeding, because the flavors and all the nutrients that you're eating are being passed on. So very important.
Yeah, it's super important. You know, they don't talk about that a lot in the prenatal setting when the mom's pregnant, right? They'll say, yeah, eat a healthy diet, or, you know, there's a lot of us who use the WIC program. I'm a WIC program graduate myself. And the recommendations are what the USDA recommends. The USDA has a total grip on what gets recommended there. So it's going to be, you know, a serving of fruit, a serving of vegetables, make sure you get milk 3 times a day, and make sure you're getting meat 3 times a day. And that's, you know, or eggs. They will also, I shouldn't say, they also do recommend beans, but only if you are inclined to eat beans. It's not like a heavy emphasis on that type of food. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, that all of the nutrients that we need really come from fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans and things like that. If you're focused more that narrow slice of the food spectrum that's called animal products and refined foods, you're not getting very many nutrients at all, right? So the best answer for a breastfeeding mom is wide variety of fresh fruits and vegetables. Frozen is also good. Canned is even good, for that matter, if that's what's available, you know. Whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, mushrooms. That's the best answer.
Yeah, and what about these women that are living, in poverty, and they're having to, and then the food they get, is not healthy food. How can we help those women and their children? They're when they're going to the food banks. Is there anything the food banks are ever going to change to be giving out healthier foods and vegetables? Do you see that changing in the future?
It would be nice. It would be nice if they could work with like local farmers or like local sources of fresh fruits and vegetables to give to people who maybe don't have that. But it's hard if you don't live in an area that has those resources.
Yeah. And I'll tell you too, a lot of what's happened over the last generation, and maybe even last 2 generations, is people have forgotten how to cook.
Yeah.
So you can go into a food bank, and actually a lot of the good foods are there. There's rice and there's beans, there's canned vegetables, sometimes frozen vegetables, depending upon the capacity for storage, right? There's even fresh vegetables available. But a lot of times, and speaking from people who actually work in food banks, right? Friends of mine who work in food banks. A lot of times the person who's getting the food, who's doing the grocery gathering from the food bank, maybe doesn't know how to cook, or that seems like it's going to take a lot to cook dry beans and rice from, how do you even do that? That's a lot. Sometimes people don't even have can openers, right?
Equipment.
Yeah, the equipment to cook. So that can be hard. And then it just becomes about what's easy, what's convenient, what do I have the equipment for? And it turns into the convenience foods then. There's an interesting thing too. Another friend of mine told me that some of these foods, like the dried beans and the rice and the oats and things like that, they have sort of like a stigma attached to them, right? That's what really poor people eat, or that's what you eat if you don't have any other options, or, I'd really rather have the ramen and the mac and cheese, because that at least on some level feels more like I've got something to be proud of, right?
Yeah.
Whereas cooking things from scratch, these dry beans and rice, everybody knows that's what poor people eat, right? And I'm putting that in quotes, poor people.
Right.
I eat beans and rice every day.
Yeah.
Every day I can.
Yeah,
I eat beans and rice. That's my staple, but for a lot of people, it's just not seen as desirable in so many different ways.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, my parents are from Mexico, and we had a lot of tortillas and beans and everything. But yeah, that is what the poor people in Mexico ate, right? So coming to the States, now we're eating steak.
Right.
To the States, eating steak. Yeah, and it's like, wow, we've really moved up. But now,
yes, exactly.
And that's a sign too. People think that they can afford the more animal products. That's a sign that they're doing well.
Right. You're moving up.
Yeah.
But sadly, it causes all kinds of other problems, right? Causes heart disease, causes diabetes, causes high blood pressure, affects the inflammation in the body. There's so many things that go along with eating too much animal product,
Yeah, and I know, of course, I feel like the when you change the way you eat, you're opening up to so many, such great, the benefits, the health benefits are amazing. And I have a friend that has 2 little autistic children, and she bakes everything, their crackers she makes for them, all of their foods, and she's very careful about what they eat because she knows that it makes a big difference in their behavior, in their because her little boy is he gets agitated very easily, but she's got to make sure that his diet is clean. So, it helps him to stay calmer.
Right. Yeah. So true. Yeah. So true. Yeah.
Yeah. And people just don't know the ties. I don't know how we become so blind to the tie of what we put in our mouth. Why are we not connecting it? I don't know when we lost that, or did we even ever have that connection?
Well, I believe we did.
Yeah, at one point.
It was a couple generations back, though. It was a long time ago. And that whole thing, I'm going to just go get totally nerdy on you right now, okay?
Okay.
All right. The disconnect, in my opinion, started so long ago, like even as far back as the Salem witch hunts, when they would, they rounded up in some of the cities in Europe, Germany, Romania, Hungary, those kind of areas, they rounded up the whole towns, all the women in the town, all the girls in the town, and killed them because they were all seen as dangerous witches, daughters of Satan. I don't know what was going on back then, but that's what the thing was. And those women and girls held the knowledge of the herbs and what to do during childbirth and how do you manage sick babies. And they held all that information, right? And when those women and young women, none of them got to be very old back then, right? But when those women were wiped out, a lot of that cultural knowledge was lost. And from there, it went forward with the more male-dominated medical system. It took time, right? It took generations and generations. But men never had that knowledge that the women held. The women were the healers, right? So that's when it started. And then as things progressed, and you develop a couple of really snazzy medications, like antibiotics are really pretty cool, right?
Mhm.
That's some good stuff right there. If you need antibiotics, that's great, right? But that also cemented in that, well, we don't need herbs, we don't need these natural methods, we
Yeah.
can just use medicines. How long ago was it that they were giving mercury and they were using different,
Mhm.
actually poisonous things to help try to cure illnesses? And that was all based, came about with the loss of the herbal knowledge that the
Yeah.
women held.
Well, and one thing to remember as a pharmacist, I can bring this up with
Mm.
confidence, but a lot of the medications either started from a plant source or are based on that. So, we should be going back to that rather than
Yeah.
using the medications, because herbs and they can be pretty powerful.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They're designed to match our bodies. Like, okay, so your family's from Mexico, you said, right, Mariquita? So I worked with a large number, like so many Mexican women who had recently arrived in the United States, and they would tell me their different herbs, right, that they would use, like manzanilla for an upset stomach, or hierbabuena for upset stomach, or different things. Verdolaga was another one that people would eat, right? This is stuff that grows in the cracks of the sidewalk. This is not, but they're powerful.
Yeah.
But you don't know about that in the United States. You don't get that
No.
information here. But you're
No,
told take Pepto-Bismol, which comes from peppermint, by the way. Right? And if you have a pain in your head, take aspirin or ibuprofen or whatever the next best thing is.
Yeah.
We're trained away from it in the United States, which is very sad. And then as we're trained away from it, we're trained toward buying products from pharmaceutical companies
Yeah.
who are there to make money off of, dare I say, our illnesses.
Yeah.
yeah. That's so interesting, because I wish my mom was still alive, because now I'd be like, well, now I want to hear. Now I finally reached the point where I want to know what that stuff, those little, like she would put these little plants or like little sprout, whatever they were, in her ears when her ears ached, and or what, I don't know. There were a lot of things that herbs, and I thought she was crazy. I was a teenager in the United States, and
In the
so I
United
thought,
States.
Yeah.
Come on,
what are you
get with
doing?
the times. Little did we know.
I know, huh? Now she's probably listening to me somewhere, and they're probably laughing. She laughed a lot
Yeah,
today.
she's like, I told you.
I know.
So
Oh my
true.
gosh. Yeah, it's funny. And what's so sad too is with the rainforest being destroyed. I remember reading an article saying, all the illnesses, all the answers are there, all the ailments are in the rainforest, and it's being depleted.
Yeah.
So gosh, I'm so thankful that you all are out here, and everybody's working together to really help our planet and help kids, and on a mission to do the best we can.
Yes, totally.
It's also connected. It can benefit health. It can benefit the environment. It can take it all.
Benefit animals. How many millions of
Yeah.
animals' lives would be saved if we just stop this type of eating pattern?
Yeah.
How many,
Yes.
like you're saying, the rainforest, how many acres of rainforest would be saved if we would stop this animal-centric eating pattern that we have? It is,
Amen.
totally connected.
Gosh, we got some great. I know Linda is here, Linda Middlesworth, and
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Linda. Yes, and someone says, "Aha, found you." They found us, so I'm glad, whoever that is. I'm glad you found us. And then Trisha is doing her. She's doing her vegan. Well, tell us what it is, Trisha. I mean, she's doing a daycare, but she's also working on something really big. So, I mean, in the same, I mean, working with children. And she's probably, I don't even know, maybe a 1 year vegan. So she just turned vegan and just took off with this, really wanting to help children be vegan. So tell us about the 6 Million Seeds Summit.
Okay. Do you want to say it?
Sure. So we are kicking off the summit as a way to make this message visible and how important it is to feed our children. So we have 11 different speakers, and they are going to be talking on topics such as children's health and relating that to behavior. And then we also have relating it to planetary health, and we're going to have some cooking demos that will be fun. And then also trying to teach families how to incorporate small changes to make this lifestyle work for them and to make it last, so that they can incorporate small things and change not only their children's eating habits, but the family's habits as well.
Yeah. So we'll also include some resources so that people have a place to go after the summit's over. You know, where do you go to get support? Where do you go to get your questions answered? Where do you go when your child may be having a tantrum and you don't know exactly what to do with that, right? So resources for that. We also have recordings that'll be available. And dare I say, I encourage people to take advantage of well, let me back up. The summit itself is free, right? It's available, it's free, it's online, it's live. And like Carrie said, we have 11 presenters from medical doctors, pediatricians, educators, planetary health activists, as well as pharmacists and, you know, chefs and all kinds of people. So the summit itself is free, and we encourage people to upgrade to get a VIP access, which costs $47 at the beginning. It'll go up a little bit after the summit gets started, though. It'll go up to $97. But with the VIP access, you get access to all the recordings of the sessions and the Q&A. There's a private Q&A that happens after each presenter's session. So you'll get recordings of that, plus you get all of the goodie bag. And yeah, so it's going to be a pretty powerful summit, pretty powerful. We have amazing people like Dr. Columbus Batiste and Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Yami, Leanne Campbell, Frances Moore Lapay, who is somebody I have admired for almost my entire life. So yeah, some amazing presenters, just basically giving away everything they know on child nutrition.
Tell me who the one is that you admired almost your whole life. Who is that?
So Frances Moore Lapay, she's an author. So let me just tell you a little bit about this lady. She's probably 74-ish years old. She was one of the early writers of the importance of whole food, plant-based eating and its impact on the planet and the politics associated with that. I got her book, which was called Diet for a Small Planet, when I was probably about 20 years old, back in the 80s, early 80s, maybe. And her book is what guided me for years and years, for a long time. Probably still is guiding me because it's ingrained, right? I've absorbed the information. She is going to be speaking about the importance of child nutrition, health, and the impact on community and the planet. And that is her total forte. This lady has 20 books that she's written and 20 honorary PhDs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the real deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember now hearing about her. I just didn't know the name. Yeah, and let's see what the comments are here. Okay, someone is saying, let's look at these comments. Animals saved, not eaten, plus animals saved who would be killed, who compete for land and resources with farmed animals. Yes, and the forest areas cleared for animal ag, killing more wild animals. Yeah, and
that's a nasty, vicious circle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but I mean, that goes back to the rainforest that we were talking about, right? It's all connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there a resource for kids for holiday recipes?
Well, yes, there is. So we have this book that we're putting together for people who do the VIP upgrade. Right now, I think we have about, I'm going to say 20 or 30 contributors to this recipe book, to include our presenters and people who do support our work all the time. and there's all kinds of recipes in there that are kid friendly. You can get your kids involved in helping cook them. That's one.
Yeah. They may not be necessarily holiday specific,
Right.
but there's plenty
Yeah.
of kid friendly recipes
Right.
to choose from.
And I guess if you're looking for something like holiday specific, there are lots of websites you can go on.
Yeah.
Just, you can Google vegan kids holiday food, and I'm sure something will come up. Now, what you
Yeah.
have to be careful about is the ingredients, right? Because it can be vegan, which means there's no animal products involved, but it can still be pretty unhealthy. It can be highly processed. It could have a lot of dyes, a lot of sugar, stuff like that.
Yeah. One thing that we recently learned there, we had a guest on our podcast, Timmery Hagenberger. Maybe some of the viewers have heard of her. She is the nutrition professor, and she has a book called The Foodie Bar. And it's all about making these bars different. So like a potato bar or a taco bar or a pasta bar or oatmeal bar. And she said that she's tried some of those for holidays, where you have like a family gathering. So it's not necessarily a particular recipe that you're following, but just having a wide variety and letting kids and all the adults, for that matter, pick what they want to top whatever they're building. And I think that's sometimes a better way to approach it,
Right.
because then you can have appeal to a wider audience and get the kids involved in helping prepare everything. And getting them to maybe try things they might not have thought of before.
Right. The other thing about that is it takes the stress off.
It does.
I remember up until not too awful long ago, cranking out a whole Thanksgiving meal or a whole Christmas meal or whatever, and it's just all day in the kitchen, and it's just so stressful. And what if it doesn't turn out, or what if you burn the rice at the last minute? Whatever, there's so many things that can go wrong with those arrangements. But to have this foodie bar, like, I love the idea of a baked potato.
Mm-hmm.
Get a big baked potato, get a big sweet potato, get a purple potato, whatever kind of potatoes you like, right? And if you have like a cashew cheese sauce, and you've got some steamed broccoli, and you've got some red bell peppers, maybe sauteed or, steam fried, or
you can do so many different things.
Mushrooms and onions and all that. And everybody can pick what they want. Have some hemp seeds, have some peanuts, have whatever works.
Yeah.
And then it's like no stress, right? Everybody gets to make what they want. And the only stress comes in cleaning up after, which is a whole nother issue.
But that seems fun,
Yeah.
Make it fun, right?
Yes.
That's how you appeal to the kids. Get them involved to make it fun.
Definitely. I think it's fun when I make my those little oatmeal things, mixing in carrots and oats and who knows what. It's always kind of a little experiment for me. That's always fun to see. I mean, it seems like even when I make cheese, it's kind of an experiment. What am I going to put in it this time? So there's a lot of, it opens up a lot of newness. When you have kids, you can make them a part of that too. So, yeah. And then I have a comment over here. Last time I checked, Frances Moore Lapie is not even a vegetarian. Do you know?
So here's what Frances Moore Lapie does. She is all about making it as available to everyone as possible. So she encourages people to increase their plant-based foods, because you and I both know, come on, we can have this conversation. How many people have you gone to and said, you should be a vegetarian? Look how I do it. It's so easy. It's so fun. And how successful are we?
Yeah.
I can tell you, not super successful, are we? If you get 1 in 20 people to actually agree or even listen to what you're saying, I'd say you're amazing. So she makes it available to people where they are, and she encourages people to eat as many plant-based foods as they can. Mm-hmm. If we can get people, honestly, now in my own life, I'm a purist, and so is Carrie. We don't eat any animal products at all, right? But if I could get even half the people that I speak to eat 75% of their plate full of vegetables,
that would be huge.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How many lives would we save?
Yeah.
a
I
lot.
think that too. Yeah, I think that too, right? I mean, it can't be black and white. We've got to start moving people, right? Shifting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And while
Yeah.
there's some people, when they start eating this way, say they go all in or go 100%, not everyone does that. So, starting to make small choices and incorporating more and, maybe crowding out some of the unhealthier options, that's a better way to approach it. It's not necessarily you have to go all in and 100% right away, but making those small changes and realizing how good it feels and maybe some of the health benefits, and then that makes it easier to stick with and to continue.
Right. And certainly once you start learning more, you start watching the
Yeah.
documentaries and you start reading and you have support from other people who are eating this way, I think it helps move the needle on that.
Yeah. Because neither one of us were perfect
No.
when we started. So it's not about that. It's just about
Yeah.
making small changes and doing what you can and
Yeah.
meeting people where they are.
And honestly, when people ask me what's the best way to start, because let's say the person's a heavy meat-based eater, right? All I ask them or recommend is just put one more serving of vegetables on your plate every meal. Start with that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful because it's not threatening.
No, just try that. And then next week, add 2. Next week, add another. And eventually you won't have any room on your plate for the animal products.
Right. Yeah, I love that because people have got to understand that also. Let's just say they're trying and then they slip up. That's okay. A lot of times that people get angry when people, let's just say they were vegan and then they went back and then they get attacked. Let's not attack, but that's normal part of life. Think about when we were babies, we fell down a lot and we got back up. So it's okay. Just help them get back up, help them, ask them, can I help you? That's where we got to change our mindset instead of attacking everybody. So it's great that you all have that, it's beautiful to see that you all have the same mindset of helping and a little bit at a time, just a little at a time. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we work with children in educational settings, now we're only there for a few weeks, right? And we're only going to be there for one meal a day at the most. So we just offer them to try foods that they've never tried before. We can't get mad if they don't want to try black beans, right? If they literally, kids walk in with bags full of all kinds of questionable eating material, food-like substances. All we can do is just say, okay, that's great. Now we're going to put that down and, try this. This is hummus. Try this. These are red bell peppers. Try this. This is black bean chili with rice, And as long as we're not judgmental about it and we're appreciative of their being brave and trying and, open to change, that's all we can ask,
And allow compassion because they're gonna try things that they will not like. And it might take 15 times before they try it and actually like it. So realizing that it's not going to be perfect on the first try and allowing them to experiment and not be judgmental, because then that's just going to turn them off.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful process. It sounds like, where you're just curious, it's just curiosity. How does this taste to you? Oh, well, let's try this, or you know what I mean? And then that's such a beautiful place, a safe space. That's what we have to have, safe space for everyone, for our children too. Right. Now we're getting a lot of comments over here. So
okay, let's see.
Let's look at some of them. Here we go. Here's what Trisha's doing. She's the founder of Compassion Rising, cultivating the seeds of compassion within every child. Compassion-based child enrichment program for families as well as childcare programs that offer a renowned empathy-based curriculum, compassion-based diet guidance, children's meditation and yoga, eco-conscious living guidance, conscious community networking, and compassion expert panel that includes Dr. Salish Rao, Dr. William Tuttle, and more. I love that. The fact that Trisha's jumped right in and really wanting to help our younger generation is amazing. So,
yes,
man, it's beautiful.
Trisha, I'm going to reach out to you.
Definitely reach. Yes, you all definitely should be connected because your mission is the same.
Yes, yes.
Thank God we have you all.
Right.
Um,
And that's one of the primary things of the 6 Million Seeds project is that we link with each other.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do it in isolation. We can't do it alone. Doing it alone has gotten us as far as we've gotten, and that's great. But we do need to work together at this point, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and one of the things we didn't mention before about the summit is the initial intent was to have it as a kickoff or a launch for what we are declaring a decade starting next year of excellence in child nutrition. And part of that is forming a coalition of like-minded individuals, organizations that do just that, is promote the same message and move it forward as a cohesive group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Yes. The more people come together, the more powerful we are to change our health. And I was listening to Dr. Milton Mills, and he was talking about how we're setting up our children to be finished with school and go right into high blood pressure, everything, the stents, the high cholesterol and the statins.
So true.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So
indeed.
true.
How many kids do we have right now that are overweight and obese?
Mm-hmm. And some of them even have, high blood pressure and diabetes
already.
And conditions that we used to think only affected adults, but now
it's affecting 16-year-olds or 15-year-olds and earlier.
Yeah, it is, because I think about the school pictures. When I saw everyone's school picture and children, it seemed like back in my day that everyone would seem to be a normal weight. There weren't many children that were overweight. And now if I look at the class pictures of, like my nephews and stuff, there's so many little children that are heavy, and it's so sad.
Yeah.
It sets them up for a lifetime of chronic illness starting so young. And we do that, so Mariquita, you already know this, and I'm sure your listeners know this. But this is one thing I think is fascinating. So the World Health Organization declared processed meats carcinogenic in 2015, right? We've heard this. And still every parent, not every, but certainly a lot of parents are still giving their kids bacon and hot dogs and corn dogs and pepperoni and sausages and processed chicken nuggets all day, every day. I don't know of any parent who would consciously say, I hope my kid gets, high blood pressure and cancer. Nobody says that, right? I've never heard that. I've been a nurse for 30 years. I've never heard anybody say that. But still, here we are. That's what we do. We feed our children this way, and the government sanctions it. The government says it's okay. There's no warning labels on the bacon package, right? Yeah. So we're giving our kids this stuff. And then by the time they're 20, they're certainly well set up, and most of them are having heart attacks and high blood pressure by the time they're 45, for sure. So that's the type of stuff we want to stop. We have to stop it. We got to get it done.
Yeah.
And how are the little kids? What are their? Are they receptive to this, or what do they say? What do they think about this, the new way of eating, or are they curious, or are they? Well, just tell me.
Yeah. So when we were working with we were working with kids at the Boys and Girls Club this summer, they asked a lot of questions. They were interested. Some of the things that we tried with them, they did not like, but there were certain recipes that they did. They came in with, obviously most kids have certain foods they're familiar with and certain dishes that they prefer. So they had some ideas, and they're like, well, can we make this, or can we make that? And we found ways to incorporate the foods that they were familiar with in a way that they already liked. So it was easier for them to try it because they already had a sense of, what it would taste like, but throw some new things in along the way. And we did try some new recipes that they loved.
Yeah. The other thing I would say too is, there's a way to get kids to try new stuff, right? So if you just tell the kids, sit down, you're going to eat this. That's probably the worst way you could go about it, right? We all know that. But if first the parents are the role model, or the adult in the room is a role model, and the foodie bar way is a great way to do it. Make it low stress and make it so that they can customize it and leave out the mushrooms if they don't like mushrooms, and add in the cheese sauce if that's what makes them happy. And it's all good stuff, so it doesn't matter if they eat it all or not, or only 2 or 3 things, it's fine. And then also try and get the kids to help prepare it. That was one of the most important things we found working with the kids, was that they like to be able to cook. Yeah. They wanted to be able to cook. So to give them a pot at a height where they could cook and stir and not get, burned or splashed, that was safe for them. That made a huge difference. And I'll tell you another thing that made a big difference. We had a garden. So the kids would work in the garden, which they thought was amazing, right? Best ever. Bugs, mud, who could want more? And then they would pick what was in the garden, what was growing and what was ready to pick. And we'd bring it into the cooking part, the kitchen. And they would cook and have, roll up sandwiches or, whatever we made that day. And that made it all amazing. They had a hand in growing it. They had a hand in cooking it, and then they got to eat it. Yeah. That made a huge difference.
And it also furthers their connection with where their food comes from, which many kids may not understand, that you can grow your own food and then eat it.
Right.
They think it comes from, the grocery store or
a
package.
Right. But why does this carrot have dirt on it?
Exactly. They come from the ground.
That sounds like fun. Yeah, that is a good way. And it seems like there are getting to be better ways to bring growing your own vegetables into every home now. I mean, you don't have to always have land. You can start. I mean, there are new, better resources for doing it at home with a child. And that's a great way to introduce. Even just a tiny little plant brings excitement to a little child.
Yeah. There's some great indoor grow systems that are really, really inexpensive. You don't have to get the, $5,000 grow tower with a built-in lighting system. You don't have to go that route. There are, go to your local hardware store and get some PVC pipe, and there's plans you can get and string it up, and here's a light, and grow your vegetables in mason jars. Honestly, there's lots of ways to do it for really inexpensive.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you know how to do it. I don't know, but I know that there's better resources. So I'm going to check that out, because I would love to do that. Let's see. I'm looking at some more comments here. Let me show this one. I held a vegan buffet and social interactive events prior to COVID lockdown. A man probably in his 70s or 80s attended one and said it was the first meal he ever had that was all plants, no animal products, and he really enjoyed it. I told him, this event was for you. That's beautiful. Isn't that exciting?
That is. Yay. Right?
Yes, you never know who's going to respond. That's right? It's really exciting.
And it's never too late. 70s or 80s, great. Yay.
Yeah. And it's like a lot of people say, oh, well, this person's never going to understand. But the fact is, they might develop a chronic disease, and then they're going to want to know. They'll think, oh, well, I was talking to Carrie about that, a year or two ago, right? And I didn't care, but now I realize that I could get some help from Carrie, right? So that's the big thing, we just don't know. And the seeds you're planting with the children, right? So they might go on to eat meat, but then maybe when they hit college, they'll think about those seeds that you planted and go back. You never know what these seeds that we plant, when they're really going to sprout. And you're getting them where you're working on at this elementary level, which is so important, because what happens if little children are not getting their nutritional needs met? What are the consequences of that?
Well, they don't reach their full potential. They don't have the opportunity to, obviously getting all the nutrients you need helps your growth. but also, mental health and their emotions. That plays a huge role too. And if they're not getting the right foods, they're not able to focus and to stay on track and reach their full potential in school. And that leads to another whole host of problems.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not only health, there's a lot of other factors.
Yeah. Actually, so that same lady that I mentioned before, Frances Moore-Lapay, she and I were talking not long ago, and she was saying that when a child doesn't get the nutrients that the child needs at specific stages, right? So there's times where we go through these growth spurts, right?
Mhm.
And we need certain nutrients, a good complement of nutrients just to get us through the growth spurt. It results in what we call stunting. Now there's stunted growth, so you maybe don't get as tall as you might be,
Mhm.
right? But there's also stunted mental capacity, stunted learning capacity, stunted emotional growth.
Yeah.
Right. And then what I think Carrie was referring to on top of that, there's also that plant-based foods give us the building blocks to create the neurotransmitters,
Yes, they
right?
do.
That our brains use to process everything from what we see to what we hear to what we taste to how we have to figure out math problems or formulate sentences or anything.
Mhm.
How we are in the world is related to our neurotransmitters and our brain chemistry.
Mhm.
If we don't eat the right foods, or we're eating foods that don't provide those basic building blocks, the child is left without the capacity to do those things. And what they are left with is our counterfeit neurotransmitters, things that don't really serve the purpose. But the body is wise, right? The body's going to try and do what it needs to do. It's going to take whatever it can and try to put together these chemicals that facilitate brain function. But if we don't have the right nutrients, it can't make the right chemicals. And then you're left with a kid who maybe has those big emotions or those difficult transitions or acts out or yells or has outbursts or, can't sit in their chair for very long or, gets angry, depressed, anxious. All these things have long ago were tied to diet. It's been figured out. It's all figured out already.
Yeah.
We just don't know. The parents don't get this information. What the parents get told is medications.
Yes,
Right?
unfortunately, when we realize that she was saying, the neurotransmitters are, you can get those through food, or the building blocks for those from food. But rather than do that, we go straight to medications. And it's the same for adults. A lot of the health conditions that we see can be treated and reversed with food. So there's no need to, in some cases, yes, medications do play a critical role. But in thinking about kids, if we could get them started on more nutrient dense food, they wouldn't get to the point where they need to be on medications.
Right.
Most of the time.
Right. Or certainly set them up for success.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Right?
And if they have to be on medication for certain conditions, the nutrition only benefits them.
That's right. Right.
In addition to those.
Yes, I'm really worried about my nephews. I don't know if they're getting any nutrition because, when I go, hopefully they're not watching, which I don't think they are. But anyway, I go over, to my sister's house and there's Cokes everywhere and chips and everything's fast food or Stouffer's. It's like, oh my gosh, are you getting any nutrition? And they're not happy. They're just not happy children. And how much is it, and they're not getting what they need. So, it makes sense. It's really, really sad.
Yeah. But that's part of that same conversation we were having before, right? We're so disconnected from the effect that food has on all facets of the body, emotional, spiritual, psychological, physical. We're just disconnected, right? And what the big food companies have done in their brilliance is sell us convenience. Food is supposed to be cheap, quick, and easy, right? So if I can get a fast food or a Stouffer's or a Coke and the advertising says it's all good, come on, it's enriched with vitamins, right?
Oh my gosh.
It's got to be good. And the government wouldn't allow a company to sell us something that's dangerous, right? So, okay, this is good. And that the fact that my children are sad, or maybe they're got anemia, or they're maybe leaning toward ADHD, or they have outbursts in school, that doesn't get connected to food. That gets connected to a genetic problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets handled by medications, which are antidepressants, or their stimulants, or their whatever else we give kids to manage that stuff.
That is so sad and so true. And it's just rampant. It's sickening.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So
now I'll even go one better. I'm sorry. This gets to be a heavy conversation. It really does. I feel like I need to apologize. This is not a light conversation. I wish it was. I wish it was super light. But one thing to consider is that there are whole neighborhoods that are living in food deserts, that have virtually no access to healthy food. We have families that are shopping at the corner gas station, and that's what those kids are eating.
Yeah.
That's a whole neighborhood who's stunted, who doesn't get to attain their full human potential. That's something. If we could do anything, if we could stop that, if we could stop the epidemic of obesity and diabetes, and stop whole neighborhoods, whole zip codes of people from missing out on life, this is a project worth doing. If we could just do that, it's worth our time.
Worth it. Yeah.
Yes, I mean the poor neighborhoods that don't know any different. I mean, that's all that's it for them. It's so sad. Yes, and they're trapped in this cycle.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it's powerful. It's powerful to think about. But we got to do better. We're going to fix it. We're going to change it.
Yeah, and you're starting right where you need to start. So I know we're running close to time. So why don't you tell us again about the summit and where people can reach out to you? I see that Tricia wants to connect with both of you all, definitely, and Angela's here watching. Thanks for watching, and thanks everyone. But to give us the scoop again about the summit, where they can reach out to you, and definitely everybody watching, please take advantage of this summit. Connecting, the more we connect together, the more powerful we are, the more we can help our children.
Okay, so I'm going to let Carrie put the link in the chat for the bit.ly. Okay, I do know it. Okay. It's bit.ly, but Carrie's going to put it in the chat.
I think I know
it. /6ms.
This way?
No, /.
Okay.
6ms --summit -register. So this is how you can register. It also gives a whole lot of information, but thank you, about the summit itself. It tells the schedule. It tells who all the presenters are.
Yeah, I don't think we've mentioned the dates, but it is December 3rd through the 6th.
True. Right. Yeah, there's 2 sessions per day. So there's one at 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. And then there's another one at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And each session is a different presenter. There's no duplicates, right? So the summit is just about getting everybody information on as many facets as we can of child nutrition, between, cardiologists and family practice docs and pediatricians, educators, planetary health activists, chefs. We'll have interviews. We've got food demos, cooking demos.
Yeah.
And then, like we said, there's the opportunity to access sessions after the ones that are available to the general public. 30-minute sessions after each provider or each presenter segment. There's a 30-minute session that you can, it's an upgrade. It's a $47 upgrade. If you act now, you can get it for $47. And you'll be able to interact with Dr. Joel Furman and ask him, okay, what do I do about my child who has such big emotions that they're screaming and the teacher's telling him, sending him home with bad reports? How do you make certain kinds of foods? What is food as medicine? You know, how do you do these things? So that's what the summit is all about.
And you said, is it December? What were the dates?
December 3rd through the 6th.
Okay, 3rd through the 6th.
Yeah, all online, free, live.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about this, definitely. And well, I'm just very thankful for everything you all are doing to help our children and help the world. I mean, if you help the children, and that we're helping everyone. So this is, y'all are a tremendous blessing. So thank you for joining me. And everyone, please reach out to these beautiful ladies. Are y'all are on LinkedIn, or where can they find you all directly?
You know what? Here, we're going to put our email. This is our email address. This will get to both Carrie and I.
Okay. And then, yeah, definitely check on Facebook and in my group, and put that information too in, so we can make sure everybody gets it. Or like, if you can't get it, reach out to me and I will connect you, everyone, because we need to reach out to each other. Like I said before, the more we connect, the stronger we are. We're bringing our children in to be a part of this beautiful, big movement for health and for prosperity. This is our birthright, right? It's our birthright that's been taken away.
It really is. You know, I'm going to say one other thing, Mariquita.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us. This has just been wonderful. And thank you, everybody who's been watching and sending in questions. And please contact us by any of these
we would
means.
love to hear from
oh my gosh. Yeah, the goal is to connect and build a coalition that works. But, you know, earlier we were talking about children, right? And how children are our future. But I'm going to pull that back and say, children are our right now. They're right now. If a child comes in the door and he's ranting and screaming, or he's not healthy, he's not growing well, he's not being able to sit in school, that becomes a problem right now. It's an immediate issue. So it's stuff that we need to take care of right now so that they can grow and be healthy and manage themselves going forward, right? And if we don't provide them with decent food, and I'm going to tell you, even as somebody, I've been whole food plant-based a long time, right? It's easy to not do it with your children.
Yeah.
It's easy to not, because there's so much mass advertising, there's so much influence in school, there's so much stuff every time you go in the grocery store. It's just easy to not, right? I can eat healthy myself and still feed my children not super healthy food. But it's time, because it's having such a negative impact on the children, the planet, other animals, society as a whole. It's taken a terrible toll. It's time.
And the one thing that's the driver for all of that is the one thing that can fix it: what we eat.
And what we feed our kids.
Yeah.
Amen.
Right.
Yes. Well, I'm going to be sleeping well tonight, because I'm going to be thinking about all this and how you all are making a change. I love it. So thank you, ladies. This has been inspirational.
Yes. Our pleasure. Totally. Thank you.
And thanks, everybody, for watching. We appreciate you all so much. And this has been a blessing. So everyone, have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.